Hi, everyone. My project focused on educational inequities with children in foster care and guardian ad litem perspectives on their educational advocacy. I will now refer to guardian ad litems as GALs. So, my research question was, how do GAL volunteers describe the barriers and opportunities related to promoting educational equity for children in foster care? Um, this topic matters because children in foster care are such a vulnerable population. The state decides that they're going to be responsible for these children, and oftentimes um, they fail. They have lower educational attainment. The fact that they have school mobility and trauma and special educational needs, often that their needs just don't get met. This topic is also personally meaningful to me as I had many gals involved in my life, and their advocacy really helped shape my future and my educational path. I later served as a guardian ad litem in Palm Beach County, and that experience really helped me see how powerful guardian ad litem advocacy can be for these vulnerable children. Um, for this study, I interviewed three former or current guardian ad litem volunteers in Palm Beach County because I wanted to understand the barriers that they observed and what advocacy strategies they thought mattered, and whether they even thought education was a part of the guardian ad litem role. So I used for this qualitative study semi-structured interviews. I had the same core interview questions, but I also asked some follow-up questions when I needed like more explanation. After the interview, I transcribed all of the interviews, and the analysis used thematic coding. First, I read through the entire interview to understand it. And then I reviewed the transcripts and highlighted themes that I saw were emerging. Some themes came from the literature and my original conceptual framework, such as placement instability, trauma, fragmented communication, and supportive adult relationships. And other codes that I was noticing came from the interviews, such as transportation barriers, educational surrogate involvement, gal follow through, systems overload, like with the caseworkers, and role ambiguity. I put these codes into a working code book and with short definitions and examples, and I compared the codes across the three interviews. My conceptual framework also changed a little bit during the process. At first, I mostly thought about gals as a supportive role, but now I really see how gals can be a powerful cross-system bridge, working in their own sphere of influence, as well as with schools and caseworkers, lawyers and judges, doctors even. This revised framework shows that educational inequity is shaped by systemic disruption and access barriers, and as well as relational needs. The GAL advocacy can help reduce the chance that these educational needs are overlooked, but only when GALs have the proper training, role clarity, and collaboration with other professionals. The interviews revealed five main findings. First, placement instability disrupted educational continuity. Unsurprisingly, when as the participants explained, when these children are moved between homes and counties and schools, this is often done with little notice, and it leads to missed attendance. They can have delayed enrollment. One of the participants explained a child had missed school for 16 days upon moving homes. They lose relationships with their peers, with teachers when they move, and it's very difficult when the youth are moved with little time to prepare. Um, a second finding was that trauma and unmet needs were often misunderstood in schools. Um, Participants described these children coming to school hungry, with little sleep. They could have been literally removed from a home in the middle of the night, which often happens. And these kids are all coming from a place of trauma, as one participant explained, but the schools often respond with discipline and labeling them as problem children instead of approaching with a more trauma-informed framework and recognizing what these children have experienced. The third is fragmented communication, which causes concerns to be overlooked. The participants described situations where schools and caseworkers, caregivers, and courts each had pieces of information, but no one person had the entire picture. So when I asked how it went, participant two said, I don't think they do very well in terms of how some systems communicate about education. Another participant described the system as bureaucratic, which there's delays with follow-up and meetings and between the caseworkers, the guardian ad litems, the lawyers, the foster parents, the biological parents, the judges, teachers, doctors. There's just not one person that's, you know, communicating to everyone as a whole. And there's not enough follow-up. So it's very important for there to be one person that really follows through. And that's not happening because there's just such fragmented communication. Um, Fourth, a consistent adult presence and follow through at created opportunities. So, participants described advocacy, effective advocacy, as asking more questions to these children, attending meetings, monitoring school concerns, and continuing to follow up. I remember one of the participants who I know personally just kept saying, someone's got to follow up. Someone has to keep following up. This was one of the strongest findings for me because it showed that advocacy doesn't always require like a big intervention or anything super formal. It's just someone following up and making sure people are doing what they say they're going to do. Um, and stay until the problem is addressed. One of the examples was making sure this child got access to some services. Well, there was transportation issues, and sometimes it just falls through the cracks. And the guardian ad litem can be in touch with the case manager and be in touch with the foster care parents and the school and make sure the child is attending and really following up that these services are happening. Finally, gals needed clear education-focused training. While there is a role called an educational surrogate, which is described in my paper, it's only for children, very specific instances. It doesn't apply to all foster care youth, while a guardian ad litem is automatically appointed upon a dependency adjudication. So gals are really powerful and um, they just need clearer training around education. Um, when you're trained as a gal, you're supposed just to really look at interests of the children. And that's often a safety concern. And we don't learn enough about education. So participants suggested that gals could benefit from more guidance on attendance, IEP plans, 504 plans, trauma-informed practices, transportation issues, and post-secondary planning for these children. And a major implication of my study is that education should be seen as more of a central, clear part of the GAL picture for the best interest advocacy. GAL volunteers, I'm not suggesting they become experts, but they could be trained to identify educational concerns and ask the right questions, and be the person that communicates across the systems and follows up for these students. This could help make educational advocacy less dependent on individual volunteer initiative and more consistent for all the children in foster care. Overall, my study suggests that gals are uniquely positioned to help prevent educational needs from falling through the cracks. I don't suggest that they can, solve educational inequities themselves, but they can play an important role in connecting systems and supporting youth voice and making sure that education remains a part of the conversation. Thank you so much.